Hi, my name's Rachel and welcome to How to Connect to Goddess. This video is an introduction to what and who Goddess is. I'm going to be exploring different perspectives and opinions and approaches so that you can listen and feel what resonates for you and perhaps find a way for you to connect to Goddess. For those of you that are new here that don't know who I am a best-selling author on goddess mythology, goddess symbology. I have many books that cover lots of different goddesses, and also a women's empowerment and flower essence coach, as well as a sacred dance teacher. I am the creatrix of Wolf Woman Rising, and within that school I do support and facilitate connection to Goddess. So let us begin with who or what Goddess is and the different ways that perhaps you could determine or view Goddess. So for some, Goddess is an ancestor, maybe perhaps even one of the original beings. So many people think that Goddess is queens perhaps, or important people in the past, and then after they've died they become almost legends. They've become remembered as very important people that had a huge impact. So maybe they were rulers, or maybe they were wise women or priestesses, and then after these stories kind of worship developed up around them, some believe them to be ancestors of particular people or lineages. So perhaps if there's a goddess of a particular country or a particular area, some people believe them to be the first or original beings in that area, perhaps a leader of those original beings, or some people even believe that maybe these goddesses were from a different realm, a different dimension, or even a different planet, universe that came, in the first people to kind of guide. So for some people, that's how it resonates, that they are the ancestors of a particular people, a particular place, or a particular lineage. Maybe that might resonate for you. Another way that you can determine or view Goddess is as an archetype. There are universal archetypes that are across culture, across religions. And these archetypes are universal, as in they are ones that we can all relate to and that we can embody ourselves. Archetypes are perhaps stages of life, stages of ourselves, or energies that we can embody, an idea that we can embody. So for example, probably the basic that most people know is mother, maiden, crone. But there are many, many others, and different cultures have different names for them. So perhaps, queen, warrior, the sage, the child, and they're all elements and parts of ourselves that we can relate to. And some people believe that Goddess is kind of a universal example of archetypes. So they're kind of that personification of an archetype. So perhaps in the ancient world, when people were trying to get across a story or a particular point, they might use a character that embodied that archetype in the story that would lead to a certain moral or a certain conclusion to demonstrate something within that story. Some people believe that those archetypes, are an energy in themselves, that have this own kind of their own being, their own energy, that when we actually embody that archetype, we can connect to that goddess energy and have it within ourselves. So examples perhaps, of archetypes, of the goddess, you've got that mother, maiden, crone, but again, you do have queen, you do have kind of the mother perhaps, who's more of it can be in various different ways. So you may want to connect to the archetype of the mother that's birthing, the mother that is leader, which would be more the queen. We'll go a bit more in a moment into how we can connect to that, but that might be something that resonates for you. So if archetypes resonate, there might be something you want to explore a little bit more. Some people believe that Goddess is part of the creator. So the creator, the source, is like an energy source. And from that, that energy source, that original being holds all of the archetypes, all of the potential energies. And then from that, come like these different, slightly different energies. So the way you might want to view it is, that source would be like water in general. And then water can then be a river, can be an ocean, can be the rain. They're all water, but they're all different types of water. That would be the archetypes. And then within the rivers themselves, they each have an individual river. So the river Bayou, river that's in a particular country, that is named. And then that would then be the goddess, a specific goddess. So for example, we have perhaps, from the original source comes wisdom, that universal archetype of wisdom. We then have the goddesses of wisdom, who may be Minerva, Sheshet, Cridwen, Athena, and they're perhaps the rivers that are individually named, but all coming from that original source. So some people, goddess is a real living, breathing energy that, can be understood and felt and can be seen even, can be experienced within and without. And in that way, goddess can be a guide and an ally. So that's another way to view what is goddess, is as ally and guide. So if you have something specific that you want help with, they are going to help you in that way. That some people believe that the goddess, is manifest here on the earth, come to help us, to guide us, to help us to live our lives. They're kind of there as like a teacher, as a tutor, as a supporter, as a mascot, and they're accessible to support us and help us with any of these things. Another way that people kind of view goddess is as a mirror for self. So as the mirror for self, people believe that goddess is actually us, is physically us. So we are the goddess, and when we look at the mythology, or we look at the symbology, or we look at those images of the goddess, the statues, the paintings, or the ideas or the archetypes, we're actually looking at ourselves. It's this part of ourselves. So the divine part of self, the soul part of self, is actually the god, the goddess, the original source within. It's our own divine being. So when we look at the morals, the stories, the mythology, or we put to the symbology, we're actually just looking at aspects of ourself. It can reflect back to us. So we look at them and we go, that makes me understand myself better. Or, this is what, this is symbolizing a part of me. So the fire may symbolize, your own anger, perhaps. Or I think of another example, thinking about love, that is the love within. So goddess may be any of these and all of these as well. So if any of those resonated for you or just felt right, then that's your way to connect to her. She can mean many things. It's as diverse as there is people on this planet, and it's a very personal thing to you. So let no one tell you what is right and what is wrong. You just go with what feels good and right to you. You have your own way of connecting. My personal opinion is that the divine offers all of these options. They're all pathways to the same source. So whichever resonates and works for you, then go with that. So next, we want to explore, why would we want to work with goddess? Well, let's go back to our first sharing of what goddess might be as an ancestor. So if we were to connect to ancestor, then goddess as ancestor, then it's going to affirm our sense of belonging and identity. So for example, I'm Welsh, I'm from North Wales. My family have been here since the beginning of time. They've never moved away. So, for me, I really resonate with the Welsh goddesses. They are important to me in my personal life, even though in my professional life, I work with the Roman pantheon. So they affirm my sense of belonging and identity as a Welsh person. Those Welsh deities are kind of connected to my bloodline, my lineage. I know that my ancestors actually did worship them, did know them. If you believe they're even an ancestor, then, as a physical blood human being, then in some way I'm probably connected and related to them. Some might view, that as a possibility. So connecting to Goddess as ancestor is going to affirm this sense of belonging and identity. It may affirm your belonging identity for like a physical place, so like me with Wales, your blood lineage, so where you're from, where various parts of your family are from. It may affirm that. Also your soul lineage as well, which may be different or the same as, it gives you that sense of, I know who I am, I know where I'm from. It gives you kind of this feeling of safety, perhaps, of knowing what was before. And it gives you also a route to connect to her and to connect to yourself as well. So if you want to deepen your connection to the land around you, she may be a really good route to do that, your local kind of gods and goddesses. You may also want to connect to Goddess for healing. So healing, you could work with her as archetype or, as guide and ally. So healing as an archetype is addressing those archetypes that are within you. So if you perhaps have one part of, yourself that is wounded or that you struggle with, that you can't access, but for, example, perhaps of your confident self, is perhaps struggling a little bit, you may want to connect to a confident archetype, the warrior, a goddess again, she may be a really powerful one for you. Or if you want to create something and you may want to connect to one of the mother goddesses, you may want to connect to, say, Isis, that's going to help you to connect to that element of yourself, understand it better. And if you understand it, you can then work with it or perhaps heal it. You may also want to connect to Goddess for healing something in particular. So if you've got something, it might be a physical ailment, it may want to, it might be a spiritual ailment, an emotional ailment that you want help and support with. In the past, our ancestors, the ancient people, they were really kind of passionate and involved in this, in giving offerings, to a god or a goddess to help them with their particular ailments. So they even have, votive offerings in ancient Rome that would be body parts that you would give on purpose, to say, can you please help me with this? So say Diana, many times, Juno is also the same. Both of them were given votive offerings in the shape of a womb to help with womb healing in particular, whether that be conceiving or whether that be excess bleeding, whatever reason. They might ask for their aid in particular, please help me to be healed for this particular ailment. So that might be another way that you want to connect to them. And then another reason why you would connect to them would just be for your empowerment, for living your best life, your most fulfilled life, being the best version of you possible. So this is more kind of along the spiritual healing, but it might not be something that needs to be healed. It might be something that you want to embody or embrace. Perhaps you want to start a new business. You may want to bring a relationship into your life, and there's a part of you that you want to engage with. So this is kind of about the mirror of the goddess. So you see their stories, you see examples of what they can do, who they are, and it inspires you. It inspires you to think, I can do this. This has been done, perhaps. It's one of the things that fascinates me about history. I just love history so much, obviously, hence my degree and my career. But it's just looking back at the past and seeing all these examples of how many people have walked and breathed and lived. And all of them, have walked a path that may be similar to yours somehow. You've got an example, millions, trillions of examples there of what not to do and maybe what to do. Stories that can inspire you, lives that you think, oh, maybe I could try that. Maybe I could do that. So that's a way perhaps Goddess is going to empower you. She may kind of help you with your confidence. She may inspire that confidence within yourself. or maybe you believe that she can share that with you. So that is why you may want to connect with her. Finally, let's just look at how you could connect to her. So we're looking at some practical ways that you can connect to the goddess energy, and no matter what way that you resonate with it or how you want to resonate with it. So it's important when you're remembering the how to connect to her, to remember kind of your why you're going to. So what is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Kind of keep this discernment around what is my objective, perhaps. So for example, if you want to embody something in particular, you may have a certain pathway to that. You want to embody something else, there might be a different type of action that you want to take. So for belonging and identity, one of the most powerful ways to connect to Goddess, the how, is pilgrimage. Pilgrimage is going on a path, a route, perhaps in ritual or ceremony, perhaps on your own with other people. It can be very diverse, but going on pilgrimage to something. So often there's an objective, and that objective can be a place. It can be a time, a festival, perhaps a particular temple that you want to go to. You may want to go to a site that is connected to the goddess that you have chosen, or the healing that you are after as well. So depending on, say, the healing that you wanted, you may choose a particular goddess. You may find out about them. For example, if you wanted something to do with conception, they may think about Flora, in Rome. If you're thinking about birthing in any way, Tararet in Egypt, so it's going to depend on what you want there. But you may want to make a pilgrimage to their specific site, wherever that may be in the world. If faraway travel isn't possible, you can make pilgrimage in your own place and your own time. So you may want to look and explore perhaps their symbology or their connection to places and things that are in nature. So for example, if they are like a woodland goddess like Artemis, you may want to go into the forest, into the woodland, make a pilgrimage to that sacred site that's particularly connected to them. If they are a water deity, they're connected to the ocean, perhaps. You may want to go to the ocean. All oceans ultimately connect. They're all kind of the same water, the body of water upon earth. So even if a goddess is particularly connected to a very specific water, there's no reason why, your messages and your prayers cannot be carried through the water to them, and she'll be able to hear you, through that certain place. As it goes for the sacred time and the festivals, you may want to find out when their particular festivals are, and you could just connect, have a little mini ritual ceremony at that time, knowing when it is. So for example, my primary deities, of course I wrote a book about her, is Lupa. So one of the best times to connect to her is for Lupercalia in February. So if you know that date, you know the times, you can explore what was done, you find out from me, then you would connect to them at that time. Most gods and goddesses, we have their festival dates that the ancient ancestors were using. Often these were connected to kind of the opening of their temples. Certainly it was in Rome. So when their temple was opened and consecrated, that would then become their holy day or their birth day. So you may want to connect to those times as well. Another great way is to explore their mythology and their research. So you can find this out through looking at their symbology, perhaps in their statues. Look at what they are actually wearing, what are they holding in their hands. Often they have symbols like Cybele, her large drum, things like that are going to have meanings that are universal, and also specific meanings for you as well, the ways that you resonate to that symbol. And then also you may want to connect to their stories, their mythology, in the ones that were written down. So there are many texts, there are poems that you can look at, so example, if you're going to go through for some of the Norse goddesses, the Prose Edda. You may want to explore that, see what the ancients wrote about it. You know, they were writing down their experiences of the goddess, so it's their approach. You know, it's an historic kind of the historic kind of records, almost like their diaries of how they experienced the goddess. It might not necessarily be the same way that you experience the goddess, and that's important to remember, in that that's the ways that they connected to it. You know, it's kind of like a universal general understanding of a god or goddess that gets eventually written down by one person. And when everything is written, that thing, that poem, that story, that book is also reflecting the person that wrote it. It's from their voice, their perspective, their experience. So you're kind of getting a glance. You know, it's like looking through a window. You know, one pane of glass, that person's looking through just that one pane, although there's many different panes of glass. So just remember that if you are experiencing something different, that's totally okay. It might be just a different aspect. It's how it's landing within you. And that's how we come back to the goddess as mirror. So you're seeing kind of your part of you within that. So have a look at the research, have a look at the, you know, the historical research, the archaeological research, and also to get a good perspective, look how different people are sharing about that god or goddesses. So there might be things written, you know, like scholars and historians like me that are compiling information, and we bring it all together in a book for you. There's going to be archaeological remains, you know, and have a look at all of them. If you have, you know, someone that's resonating for you in particular, and just see all those different perspectives, all those different opinions, and come to your own. You know, that's what it's all about, is creating your own experience. You can only experience and embody in the way that you can. Just gonna have a quick drink because I'm losing my voice. I've been talking so much. Another great way to connect to them is through kind of their symbology, specifically around kind of their totems. So if you have a particular goddess maybe that's connected to a certain animal, so of course, as you know, if you know me, wolves and lions are where I particularly resonate. So if you have, say, a wolf guide, you may want to look for wolf deities, you know, by checking out my books. You know, octopus, tiger, frog, whatever, you know, is an animal, you may want to begin with them and find out the gods that are connected to it, if that's been your animal guide. Also, if you find a goddess that you like and you see in their symbology and their totem is their ally, their guide is a particular animal, you may want to approach them via that animal. So find out excuse me, find out what that animal symbolizes, why they're represented by that animal. It can be a good intermediary to kind of go through the animal aspect of self. You know, it's accessing one part of them. And also sometimes people just kind of resonate more with the animal forms as well. The same goes for kind of other symbols. You know, if they've got a particular color that is connected to them, you may want to wear that color, have that color on your altar. If they have particular flowers, plants, you know, trees that are connected to them, then you may want to go and connect with that tree. You know, so for example, you know, in ancient Roman times, Jupiter is connected to the oak. You may want to go and connect to an oak tree. You may want to use the flower essences that are connected to them. You know, elemental is a really profound way to connect to their different aspects. Are they, you know, connected to fire, water, you know, air, earth? Could you bring that element into your ceremony, your ritual, your altar space? So a candle, you know, for Vesta, you know, earth perhaps for Tellus, you know, the earth goddess of ancient Roman mythology. So find out about those things. And then another really good way to begin to start is meditation. So meditation in the way that resonates for you. So if you are not a sitter and a lying down, staying still, I can relate to that. You may want to do walking meditation. You may want to, again, go on pilgrimage. Use the walking as a meditation to connect to them, sing to them, talk to them while you're walking to that place. You may want to dance to come into a sacred space, like a zar or a Sufi movement, that were used to, that spinning is used to get you into a place where you can open and receive communication with the divine and let go of all the thoughts, the distractions, perhaps the thoughts about what am I going to eat for dinner tonight, or does that person fancy me? You're stepping away from that and coming into either the goddess within or able to connect to the goddess above. You can do regular meditation, where you're listening to a meditation that has been created by somebody else. You can do it when you're connecting to their particular symbology or their particular activities, so if you know that, say, a goddess is particularly connected to herbal craft, you can connect to them using that activity as a meditation, perhaps as a goddess of running, when you're running. But a really good starting point is to have a meditation that is guided by somebody else that's going to connect you in a way where you can just relax, sit back, perhaps even go to sleep, go into the dream realms, or just have someone guiding you to meet them. And I do have a free meditation on SoundCloud that you can experience that is going to take you to go and meet the goddess. So this is just an introductory kind of guided journey. It's not very long, only 20 minutes, where you can just go and see what comes forward, see who you meet and who the goddess is for you, and just be open and curious. And I'd love to know, I'll pop the link below, I'd love to know who comes forward for you. So have a go at that meditation as a follow on from this. If you do have any questions at all, anything you want me to elaborate on, to go into deeper, perhaps explain myself if I haven't made sense, or if there's something that just really, wow, made sense for you, that really landed and resonated, then do comment below. If there's anything that you would like to share, like, how do you experience goddess? Who is goddess for you? I would love to know, and so would all of those that probably are reading this. You can watching this they can read what you've written and be like, oh, that's interesting. You might be able to give some tips and tools yourself, and I do welcome that. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that this did support you, inspire you, and help you come into a deeper understanding of what goddess means for you. I would love to connect further, so if you're not subscribing already, do hit subscribe. Come and find me on social media or my website, find out more about my books, and I look forward to exploring more what goddess means for you and all the ways that she can support, empower and inspire you. So sending many blessings for your continued journey with the goddess. Much love.